about the practice of REBT and a little bit of its history and, some of the basic principles that are involved in helping people become less disturbed. Albert Ellis in 1955, introduced a concept and he developed what have become known as the ABCs of REBT, of, the ABCs. And he simplified what was a very seemingly complicated issue of how people disturb themselves. And the A stood for activating event, meaning that things happen to us all the time. Sometimes they're unpleasant events, sometimes they're pleasant events, and we react to them. And he called that the consequence. So what happens is in daily life, many events are acting on us. Things happen, okay? And we have reactions to them. Many earlier psychologists and psychotherapists have said it's due to history and other factors, but Ellis said no. How we react to people depends on how we view and interpret what's happening to us. So we have these activating events that are random, they just happen to us. We have a reaction, which we call a feeling or an emotion, and there's a behavior that goes with it too. We have a feeling and a behavior. And A doesn't cause C. What really causes C is B's, which he called beliefs, which are really the core factors in our thinking. And we develop over time certain ideas about the way the world should function. And the more rigid they are, the more negative reaction we get. So and he developed the whole concept of shoulds, that when we start thinking that things should happen or should not happen, if it's too rigid and too black and white, what happens to us is that we have a negative reaction, and we quite often get disturbed. We could get anxious if we think something shouldn't happen. And then we also evaluate that. If we believe something shouldn't happen, we then think it would be awful and terrible if it happened. So we catastrophize. So at the core of REBT is demanding thoughts and catastrophic thinking. Events should or should not happen in black and white. And if they are bad, it's awful and terrible, and we can't stand it, and we get anxious and frightened. So that if you look at the ABCs of REBT, the A is the activating event, something that happens to us. The C is our feeling and behavior, but it's not caused by the activating event. If something happens that we don't like, it's because we believe that life should be a certain way, that there is an absolute way that life should be conducted. People should love us. We should never make mistakes. Life should always be easy. Those kinds of shoulds that we have in our heads, if we believe them strongly and the world gives us, a contrary activating event, we have a negative reaction. If we believe it's awful and terrible, we get anxious, okay? If we believe it's never going to change, we get depressed, okay? If we just believe that it shouldn't happen, it's wrong, it must not happen, we get angry. So that all of our negative emotions that cause what we call emotional disturbance are really a function of underlying core beliefs. which is slightly different than other cognitive behavioral approaches, because other CBT approaches talk about just the thoughts that go through your head. But Ellis emphasized it's not just the conscious thoughts that are going through our head, but the underlying core beliefs that control our reaction. And the more demanding they are, the more they have an absolute should, the more the negative reaction. And he summarized it down to 3 basic core beliefs that cause most emotional disturbance. One is perfectionism. Life should always be perfect. It should go my way. I should never make mistakes. I must always do well. Here are the musts and the shoulds. If I have that kind of belief system and I make a mistake, what happens is I get disturbed, okay? I either frighten myself because I say it's going to be this way, it's awful and terrible, and it's going to be this way forever, and I'm never going to get better. And I get scared, and I get a lot of anxiety. If I just demand that it shouldn't happen, life should be easy, I get angry and I get frustrated, okay? And so if we take the 3 core beliefs, the perfectionism is about behavior, doing everything right. And then the other major one is the need for love and attention, which many psychologists say is core and we must have it. Well, that's not true. It is certainly nice to be loved and cared for. But when we believe that it must happen, and it must happen on schedule, it must happen when we want it, we then get very depressed. We get anxious, then depressed. Sometimes we get angry. But the bottom line is we're believing that people must love us, and they must love us in a certain way. And the reality is that doesn't always happen. So it's the absolute quality and the catastrophic thinking that goes along with that absolute core belief. If I don't get loved, it's awful and terrible, and I can't stand it. And I get myself quite disturbed. The third one is the need for comfort. Everything should be easy. It shouldn't be difficult. And of course, we've been living the last year with the COVID. And we have saying that, many people are getting very depressed or very anxious because they're saying it shouldn't happen. It's too long. It's going on forever and ever. But there is no rule of the universe that says that things should always be easy, that they should be smooth. They should be the way I want them. And so we get 3 core beliefs: perfectionism, need for love, and comfort. And when it doesn't come out the way we demand it to come out, remember that should, that absolute should, which he really stole from Karen Horney, who was a psychoanalyst, when she talked about the shoulds, okay, the tyranny of the shoulds. He reinforced that idea that at the core level, absolutistic thinking is at the core of disturbed thinking, of disturbed emotions, okay? That we must learn and we must teach people that there are no absolutes. You don't need to be perfect. No one is perfect all the time. They make mistakes, including Olympic stars who make mistakes all the time. But they keep going. They don't get frightened by them. So we are not perfect. We never will be. And so we need to help ourselves understand, but we can get better at doing things. And that's okay. That's a goal. Second one is the need for love, which is overwhelming in our society, and it's being reinforced dramatically. You must be loved. If you're not loved, life is awful. Well, even parents don't like their kids a lot of times, okay? And most people grow up with parents who occasionally don't like them. It's certainly preferable to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked most of the time. But the reality is There is no absolute law of the universe that you must be loved, and you must be loved on schedule when you feel like it. You know, like when you turn the thing, I want to be loved. Well, you're not going to be. Sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it won't. So it's the absolute demand for love, demand for perfection, demand for comfort, which causes the emotional disturbance. And that's really core to REBT and significant to Ellis's earlier finding, and makes REBT on an emphasis point of view different than other CBTs. It is a CBT, REBT is one of the major cognitive behavioral approaches, but what makes it significantly different is the focus on the shoulds, and on those three shoulds more specifically: the demand for perfection, the demand for love, and the demand for comfort. We want everything easy. Well, good luck. It's not going to be easy. Some days it's going to be damn hard. Things aren't going to go your way. People aren't going to like you, and you aren't going to do everything right all the time. And then in the final ABC, we have a D here. Okay, and that's called disputing. So when you uncover the shoulds that one of your patients has, as you're discussing with them, you begin to hear their demands, their shoulds. I must be perfect. I must be loved. I must be comfortable. We need to find a way to change that should and must to a preference. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do everything well. It's very useful. But there is a huge distinction between saying I must do everything well and saying I'm going to work hard to get it better, but I may never achieve perfection. I'll just work to get it better and better. And I don't get so upset when I'm not behaving perfectly. Same thing with love. You got to move it. It's nice to be loved. We all want to be liked. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you can't have it on schedule. So what we're doing is we dispute the demand. We teach them, why must you do everything well now? Why must you be loved now? Why can't you tolerate a little discomfort? Those are questions that we ask our clients. They call them, Ellis called them disputes, okay, challenges. We dispute not the desire for perfection, love, and comfort, but the demand. We're challenging the must, the should. You know, he called it masturbation. Unlike the other pleasant activity that's not bad and you can do it as often as you want. But this one you must stop doing. You must not masturbate. Okay, you cannot do it. Or you're going to be upset. You can keep doing it, but you're going to get upset. You're going to get anxious, depressed. You're going to feel angry, and your life is going to be very disturbed. And that is at the core of emotional disturbance, and that is really at the core of REBT. I have recently decided that there are only a few things that we have to learn. One is there are no shoulds, okay? Absolutely no shoulds. Two, nothing is awful and terrible. Nothing, including the death of your child. Even that is tolerable. And three, you always have value as a human being. You don't have to earn worth and self-respect. It's a given. You have it the day you're born. You have value as a human. You don't have to prove it to anybody. So that if you can incorporate those three concepts, no shoulds, nothing is awful and terrible, and you always have value and worth, you won't disturb yourself on a regular basis. However, getting there in the cultures that we live in is not that easy, because much of our culture is teaching us different things. And much of our earlier conditioning as we are raised either by our parents, by teachers, by media, and now by social networks and all kinds in the internet and all things like that. We are being taught what Ellis called irrational thoughts, and the irrational thoughts are the shoulds, the musts, and the catastrophizing. So if we could help our clients by challenging and re-educating, getting them, they don't have to give up their goals. Nobody's telling you you have to become sloppy and not do good work, but you don't have to do it on schedule. Nobody's telling you that you don't need, that you don't ever want love and attention, but you can't have it sometimes. And you got to accept the fact that it comes and goes. And once you do that, and then comfort things, sometimes it's cold. I can remember one day talking to my younger son on the phone saying, oh, they're predicting a big snowstorm. It's, I was sort of catastrophizing in my head on the phone to him. And he said to me very calmly, he said, Dad, it's winter. What do you expect? It's going to snow. It's not a big deal. That was his way of educating me. So stop catastrophizing. You can't predict the weather, and you can't predict life, whether it's going to go your way or not. Okay. And that's how you keep yourself on an even keel. And that's the goal that you're working with your clients. Get rid of the shoulds, get rid of the catastrophizing, help them accept themselves as imperfect human beings and to accept themselves with their flaws, and life will become significantly better. It won't become perfect, but it'll become better. So that's sort of the cause. A is activating event. C is consequence, emotional and behavioral. B is belief, and the disturbed beliefs are the shoulds and the catastrophizing. And D is disputing, challenging the shoulds, the catastrophizing, so that you come and actually, which isn't talked about a lot, there is also an E in there, which is effect. Once you dispute, the D disputes the B, what happens is you come out with a new effect, which is an acceptance of reality. It is the way it is. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And that's a very important concept. You got to stop evaluating. It just is. You describe something, it is. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. So you get an A and a C. B causes C. D challenges B. And you get E. And you get total self-acceptance and acceptance of the world as it is. And you have relaxation and calm in your life. That's the theory. The practice takes lots of work and a lot of time to get that in your head so that it stays there.